Hello, everybody. How are you today? I certainly hope that all of you are doing good. In fact, I hope you're doing excellent. I'm doing excellent too, or about as best as I can be. Nevertheless, I am so grateful for this opportunity to be able to come into your presence once again. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And I would like to welcome each and every one of you out there to another episode of TJ's Topics. And in case you haven't found out by now, TJ is me. That's who I am. And I tell you what, I am so glad to be with you today. It just means so much to me. Anytime I'm able to come and share these few moments with you, it really makes me feel good inside. And I definitely do not take it for granted because I know that there are so many other people whom you can watch on YouTube, and there are so many other things that you can be doing at the same time. But for you to take time to stop by my little channel and and see what my latest word or entertainment or whatever it is, it means something to me. I want you to know that. And I definitely do not take you or the time that you spend viewing my material for granted because I'm willing to admit that there are far bigger people out here than me who have far better material than I have, whose influence spans the globe. I mean, they attract multitudes of people to their YouTube channel. And so, nevertheless, I'm grateful for the two or three of you who decide to tune in. Believe me, it means something. And so I want to say thank you very much. Now, there is something that I have been giving serious thought to over the last few months. And, you know, having been brought up in church, being in church for the bulk of my life, pretty much, I have seen a lot of changes take place. And one of those changes that I have seen is the level of attendance. You know, it seems as if there aren't very many churches packing out their sanctuaries anymore like it used to be. You know, I think back to how the churches that I was a member of in years past, how they used to be packed on Sundays. You know, I'm talking about not just for morning worship, but for Sunday school and anything else that we had. They were always jam packed. But now that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case in a lot of instances. You know, there may be occasions when people will turn out in good numbers, but it's not like that all the time anymore like it used to be in various places. Because what I see is as the years move on and as we proceed further and further into this 21st century, what I'm observing is a major decline in church attendance. And not only church attendance, but affiliation to any religion whatsoever. You know, they say that America is a Christian nation, but that's a lie. It's not. It was not founded on Christian values. The founding of this country was for the purpose of getting away from being made to have to practice a certain religion, be it Christianity or anything else. In this country, you are free to be whoever and whatever you want to be, regardless of what someone says or thinks. Such is not the case in many countries around the world, where most times the people who are born and raised there are born and raised being automatically included in their religious establishments, their religious beliefs and practices, and you know, being reared with the type of doctrine that they subscribe to. But here in this country, and that's the reason why I'm disappointed by what I have seen lately in the news, you know, with regards to Oklahoma trying to force the teaching of the Bible in their classrooms, and in Texas, where they want the Ten Commandments to be on display in every school, you know, from elementary to college. I just, I don't buy into that, because I thought there was a separation of church and state, and it's supposed to be. But it seems as if they've forgotten all about that. The founding fathers, they put that into you know the on paper. So you would think that people would abide by it, but it seems like today people are getting away from that, especially those on the right. They want to force all of this stuff down people's throats, religion and scripture and all that. But you can't make anybody believe what you believe or how you believe. Neither can they make people practice the faith that they have. So the question I have for today is, will church still be relevant in the next 100 years? That's what I want to know. Because if you ask me, I would say, no, it won't. I don't believe that church will play that big of a role in people's lives going far into the future. Um, because we're seeing it right now. We see what's going on. Like I said, churches are not that full anymore. You got some that still draw a pretty good crowd, but the vast majority of them, mm-mm. And let me just tell you this too, while we're talking about church attendance and whether or not it'll be relevant in the next century. Um, in the area here where I live, here in West Memphis, Arkansas, what I'm seeing in this area, in the city and in the county, is basically the churches that are around here are mainly propped up by a certain age bracket, a certain generation of members, of people. Um, and what I see is you have the middle-aged members and the elderly members, or senior citizens, or who they call senior saints, the seasoned saints. They are the ones, it's those two generations that are propping up most of these churches around here. And it may be the case where you live too. It's mostly the older crowd that's packing the pews now on Sundays. It's not a whole lot of young people like it used to be. It may be, it's some. We know it's some. And those are mainly the ones who are being forced to go by their parents or grandparents or whoever they live with at this present moment. They are being forced to go to church. But you rest assured that once they get grown and get out on their own, they may come back for a while. But later on, you probably won't be seeing them too much. They may pop in and out every blue moon, but eventually they're going to get away from that. And see, the problem with church is they see people abandoning that building as abandoning God, because they have intertwined God with that building. But the scripture says that God cannot be, he is not even present in these buildings. The Spirit of God does not dwell in temples made with men's hands. So I don't know. I'm just going on what I see. And what I see is over the next 30, 40, or 50 years, church won't play too much of a big role in people's lives, or the governing of a nation, which we hope it doesn't, because we see what's going on right now in Washington D.C. and see if they get their way up there, if a certain party gets its way and the people on a certain side get their way, they are going to take this country and set it back 100 years to a time when people didn't have too much religious freedom or racial equality, gender equality, or even marriage equality, because none of that was around 100 years ago. And if they get their way, especially if a certain person wins in November, they are going to take this country backwards, and they're going to go back to how it was in the 1920s. Do we want that? I think not. I know I don't. And if they sure enough had their way, they would take this country back 200 years to a time when people who look like me were somebody's property. And I definitely don't want to see that happen. So I want to ask you this. Do you think that church will be relevant in the next 100 years? And do you think that religion, whatever religion it is, Christianity or any other religion, do you think that it will still hold a significant amount of power over people in the next century? Because we see what religion has done to mankind over the last several centuries. I mean, religion has been a downfall of mankind from the jump, and it's never made any improvements. It's only made matters worse. So those are my thoughts on that subject. And though I won't be around in the next 100 years, probably not even the next 50, or I hope to be around in another 40, but if I do, I'll be pushing 90 because this year I turned 45 in November. So by the time we get ready to have the presidential election in the next few days, I turn 45, which is half of 90. And my grandmother made it to 90. So I'll be halfway to where she is, or where she got to. I'll be halfway there. So there's a good chance that I'll cross over in the next 45 years. But nevertheless, I doubt very seriously that church and very many of these religious establishments will have much of an influence over people's lives during that time. So you share your thoughts with me. Are you a church member or no? And if you've ever been, then I'm sure you remember your experiences, and that could be the reason why you don't attend today. So with that being said, I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of TJ's Topics. I really do appreciate it. And be sure to tune in again next time when we will be talking about something else of interest. There's no telling what it might be. I look forward to seeing you soon. This is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding all of you that every round goes higher and higher. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.